Okay, so tonight we're going to be reading from The Ease of Being by Jean Klein. And the questioner says to him, "Are you telling us to listen without using our ears?" And he says, "When I speak of listening, I don't mean listening with the ears. Just as when I speak of seeing, I don't mean with the eyes. Listening has no such restriction. You hear with the ears, of course, but what you take in through the ears goes immediately to your awareness. As there's no projection of a result, you're completely open. So when you hear music, for example, you hear it with your whole body. Listening is not a passive acceptance. It is active, alert. Listening must be bipolar. You hear the formulation and you hear also how it acts in you, how you react to it. Listen to your agitation, boredom, the repetition, the way you interpret, judge, analyze, criticize. Listen to your restlessness, your curiosity, your anxiety, fear, frustration. Listen to your emotivity, your feelings, states, desires, wants, likes and dislikes. There are so many things to listen to. Become acquainted with your functioning. In listening, you will feel how all these take place in you. Listening brings you to a distance from all that you have accepted secondhand as your real nature. In this space relation, this listening, you will have the forefeeling of what you really are. When you say to postpone a decision, do you mean not to identify with the feeling that anything has to be done? Jean answers, when you postpone a conclusion, there is automatically a giving up. Every situation has a solution. It is only the person, the mind, which finds no solution. It finds no solution which suits it. A fraction, a me, can never find a solution. The solution appears in your totality. It does not come from the discriminating mind through analysis. Magically, it appears out of intelligence, which arises when you are open to all possibilities. Then you really act appropriately. You are not psychologically involved in the situation, and all your capacities are freed to function. When you are not a doer, you are a most efficient channel for doing, a channel for functioning. There is no actor, doer, thinker. There is only acting, doing, thinking. In this openness, you find peace and joy in living. There is real relationship. There is love. So the questioner said, postponing has nothing to do with putting it off until Friday or next week. He says, when you live free from the identity you think you are, there is space in you. There is no longer any going to the past and from there projecting a future. When you are open, at a certain point, all the elements of a situation appear simultaneously in you. The situation concludes in you and brings its own action to be realized in space and time. This realization is completely free from authorship. You don't need a strategy. You know that tomorrow you have to go to Los Angeles because that is a fact. It is an element of the situation. But how you go, by train, car, or bus, belongs to the moment. You remain completely open. You meet the situation empty-minded. Often in moments of empty-mindedness, the reflex of the person appears because the ego feels insecure. You must experience for yourself that in this emptiness, you are completely adequate to every situation. Find out for yourself how the person only gets in the way of efficient functioning. Of course, there must be workmanship. Being open to all the facts of a situation means knowing the instruments, your capacities, the law with which you have to deal. But for the rest, it is completely in the field of the unknown. I guess this is clear, no? Questioner, why am I here? Why am I born? Why will I die? When there is love, why is there love? And why is there hate? I'll repeat the question.
Okay.
The question says, why am I here? Why am I born? Why will I die? Why is there love? And why is there hate? Jean, free yourself from the why. When you are free of the why, you'll have the living answer. In the space before, during, and after the question is the answer. You look for the motive only in action outside yourself. But when you look deeply, the motive for asking is to be in completeness related to all living beings. You will only find this underlying motive when you get rid of the why, the where, and the when. You talk about dying, but can you only speak of dying because you take for granted that you are born? What gives you the right to say you are born? Do you so easily accept secondhand information? The questioner, of course I am born. I'm here, aren't I? I know Africa exists, though I have never been there. Jean, your physical appearance is the accidental result of two people. And these two people are the accidental result of two other people. The birth with which you identify is completely accidental. The real birth is when you are free from the image which thinks it is born. I'm going to repeat that sentence. The real birth is when you are free from the image which thinks it is born. Questioner, when I'm angry, I feel very vital. I feel good in this vitality. How can I deal with anger when I feel this way? Jean. Anger is a reaction which destroys all beauty in you. See the mechanism. Otherwise, you remain in a chain of reactions where there is no exit. Then you are like a fly who bangs against the window 1,000 times. Before you can look at the mechanism, you must accept that there is something to look at. Psychological resistance. Contemplate it, even love it. It is compressed energy. When you look at it, objectify it. You are no longer an accomplice with the reaction. So accept your anger, welcome it. This is not a psychological acceptance, which is the person making a kind of sacrifice. It is a functional acceptance and openness to the facts. Isn't the personality also a part of biological survival? What we call the personality is acquired early in life. It is an accumulation of experiences and information born from your interaction with society. We are the result of our surroundings. We have believed what we have been told, crystallized it, and identified with it. But the apparent continuity of the personality is only memory reinforced by society. See that the personality can be perceived like anything else. The perceiver is your wholeness, consciousness. The personality is only a fraction of what we really are. A fraction can only see a fraction. It can never be harmonious. All acting which comes out of the fractional point of view is reaction. The moment you see this mechanism, the moment you are the seer of the personality, you are out of the process. Forget all you have read or heard about wholeness. It is all mystification. Have no representations. Be scientific. Simply see how life functions. When you are out of the process, you are open to your completeness. This is not an experience because there's no one who experiences, and therefore nothing objectified into an experience. It is non-experience, a non-state, because it is free from all subject-object relationships. It is simply being present. When the I is relinquished, you are taken by this presence. It is not a process of will. It is grace. I can go on. I'm just wondering at this point, does anybody have any comment or question? Is there anything that, is there any pointer in this that touched you? Anything he pointed to that helped with an insight?
It's almost like he's saying that if you had a case of psychological or emotional amnesia, right? If you had, if all your if your identity was erased.
Mhm.
That's what he's talking about, being in that free state without a center, without an identity.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you had amnesia, you had no memory trail going back of a personality.
With no identification, as you said, with a personality. And it seems that's what he said about meeting a situation. If you meet it, he called meeting it with your wholeness.
Mhm.
Then you would just see the facts in the situation. And then there would be right action in what to do about the situation if you needed to do anything or felt that you needed to do anything. And then he said, but you're not even the doer. There's only doing, listening. There's no I. That there's just the functioning. That's
Yeah.
what he said. It's just functioning,
Awareness function.
functioning through this body-mind instrument.
Mhm.
It's a body-mind instrument through which consciousness, awareness streams and functions. But we have identified with a permanent center that we call a me, that he said is made up of memories.
Right.
And through that, we try and perceive.
Mhm. So it's like a filter.
Yes. Right. Right. The question, must the mind come to stillness, to quietness first in order to see its contents? Jean, the mind is an object of perception. It does not need to be still to be perceived. First, see that there is agitation in the body-mind. Don't get involved in controlling, escaping, or changing the situation. Just listen to it. You will discover then that you can't listen, that the reflex to discipline, to dominate, manipulate is very strong. I repeat that it is a waste of energy to try to still the mind. The nature of the mind is movement, but you are not in the movement. It is in you. You, the background, the consciousness, conscious awareness. When the body-mind functions in you, in your wholeness, it will come spontaneously to its inherent rhythm without agitation. Then it is a perfect tool. When the body-mind functions in your wholeness, it will come spontaneously to its inherent rhythm without agitation. And then it is a perfect tool. Well, the question, it seems much more difficult to observe the mind than to say a vase of flowers. Jean, observation is not outer nor inner. Your real nature has no outer or inner. Become aware in communication with your surroundings that what you take to be two fields, outer objects and inner thoughts and feelings, are only one field from the point of view of the perceiver, your wholeness. Let anxiety, nervousness, aggression appear in your observation like clouds passing across the sky. When your observation also includes your psychophysiological field, you will become familiar with how you are in a chain of reactions. You will see that whereas you thought you knew a situation, you now see you only know your reaction And that so-called action sprang out of reaction. Actions, which are reactions, create memory in you. That's very important because that's how we register. And that's how we register the activities, the experiences, and they then become memories, and those memories solidify into a me. So actions, which are reactions, create memory in you. So he says, have communication with your surroundings. Let anxiety, nervousness, aggression appear in your observation. When your observation also includes your psychophysiological field, you know, what happens inside the body as you observe, you will become familiar with how you are in a chain of reactions. You will see that whereas you thought you knew a situation, you now see you only know your reaction. And that so-called action sprang out of reaction. Action that sprang out of reaction, rather than wholeness, openness. Because the reaction is from the past, from this me. Questioner, why are we always asking for something? Jean, when you take yourself for a personal entity, you live in restriction. In this restriction, there is insecurity. So in this insecurity, you feel the need to constantly demand and search. In our society, there is only asking. Even apparent giving is asking. What is true giving? When there is no one who gives, there is true giving. Our nature is giving, sharing. Real giving comes from a deep thankfulness to be, alive to be. How can I break the conditioning of the mind, which is based on past experiences? How can I be only in the present? As long as there is a reflex to take yourself as a center, a person, you live in the mind. The person is only memory. Memory maintains the idea of being a person. But when you don't think about anything, where are you? When you don't think about anything, where are you? The person looks for security in repetition and patterns. Memory completes all your experiences in life. These flowers are new at every moment, but you make them the same. In reality, every situation is entirely new. There may be analogy between yesterday and today, but there is no repetition. When you really understand this, you will stop using old patterns to reconstruct your situations. Memory prevents you from seeing the bare facts. Yes?
Could you read the question that started that answer? The question.
How can I break the conditioning of the mind, which is based on past experiences? How can I be only in the present? Memory prevents you from seeing the bare facts. What you take for facts, for a real experience, are only reactions based on memory. Until the center of reference, the me, is completely absent, you can never face facts. In multidimensional perception, the situation unfolds and unexpected things come up. It is much more interesting. Without the psychological center, you are receptive to the situation, present in it. So believe me when I say that every moment is new. This will leave you open to the possibility of living without projecting patterns. When there is no longer a struggle for psychological survival, psychological memory, which swings between a projected past and future, disappears. Functional memory remains, of course. Well, intellectually, I understand you. But when I look at this table, it's the same old table. I can't pretend it appears new to me. Even when you see the rising sun, you make it a concept. It is a new sun, but you don't see it. You are not really aware of the pleasure that comes up in you in admiring. Everything is new. Every day at work, or when you make your bed, or when you polish your shoes. When you are free of wasting energy in psychological reactions of like and dislike, criticism, comparison, anger, depression, etc. When there is no longer any psychological involvement, you will be awake to the moment, receptive to all that comes to you. Then you will come to an economy in your doing. Effort and expenditure of energy will be greatly reduced. You simply function, doing things that have to be done. You don't take yourself for a doer. You are simply present, and then there is a joy in the doing, in all your living. It is play, not a chore. Well, the questioner says, I notice in myself a certain laziness, so that I have a difficult time sustaining attention and seeing the facts of a situation, even when I'm aware that I project images. See in the moment itself that you don't give time to the facts, that they race you to a solution. The person is impatient because it cannot exist without finding itself somewhere. It lives in insecurity and looks for a hold in repeated situations. When there is nothing to grasp, the personality is agitated and anxious about its survival. So in the beginning, it takes time to see the facts. Sustain your observation. Let the formulation come up in you without the mind interfering. Don't squeeze the situation like a lemon to extract its juice. Let the solution come. It will come. Every situation has its own solution, you can be sure. The solution never comes from outside the situation. Well, how can I come to greater alertness? It is a question of being interested when you look at and listen to things. When you begin looking and listening, you'll start discovering, and you will enjoy the discoveries. You will see that every situation, every moment in life is a fathomless sack. But you make it a sack with a bottom and you put things in it. The moment you see that each situation is bottomless, much richer, much more alive than anything you have accumulated in your memory, then you spontaneously become more interested in life. Begin with your surroundings, your lover, if you have one, your husband, your child. Try to see them in a new way, but be careful not to take an attitude. I don't mean superimpose new qualities on your surroundings, but approach them with your wholeness. The moment you free yourself from images of your surroundings, you become really social. What people call socialism is not really socialism. Real socialism is looking at life free from memory, free from patterns. Otherwise, you keep the people around you in a prison. In seeing and acting free from memory, you give your surroundings the freedom to be free.
I have the strange feeling that I understand and love everything Klein is saying. And it's a strange feeling because I don't know why I understand and love everything he's saying. It's just that there's something there's something in me that wants to take that direction.
Yes.
And I do get little glimpses of things. Like when a situation evolves in front of me, my way of trying to perceive it is to compare it to something else that comes out of my memory, but I'm not conscious in the moment that I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of being able to receive reality by being free of memory, which is always going to be available, it's accessible, but to be free of it for a moment in relation to that reality, whatever it is. To me, it's a fascinating thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's somehow inherently related to art.
Mm.
And the artist more than the art itself, and how the artist captures a moment of reality free of memory.
Mm.
Because I love art, but I don't know why. I really don't know why. I can explain it, which doesn't mean anything. Again, if I try to explain something, I'm just crushing it into, I'm limiting it to
Yeah.
the boundaries of my memory.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm.
So I'm happy with this feeling that I understand and love what Klein is saying. I don't have to go any further than that,
Right.
or justify it, or try to explain it even to myself.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's
And if what I'm saying is not understandable, that's okay.
no, it's very
Yes,
understandable.
very.
By all means, it's very understandable.
It's almost like an intuitive knowing that bypasses the mind.
Mm. Well, yes, yes.
Mhm.
It's like, if you will, I don't know, speaking to the unconscious,
Mhm.
so that the conscious mind may not be able to understand it, but it's touching something.
Mhm.
And when you speak free of memory, I think it's important to be clear. You know, he's talking about psychological memory, not the memory that we need to function. You know, like
Right.
driving a car and writing a check and paying a bill.
Yeah.
He's talking about psychological memory, which the me is made up of.
Mhm.
I think that's the whole purpose of reading from the masters, is that their words become pointers to that absolute inside ourselves, to our true nature, to the one consciousness. And I think it's interesting too, because I know that that's what happens here, is that hearing those words, those pointers, it's you lose a sense of separateness, and there's a sense of spaciousness, of oneness. And that's why I think it's so beautiful and so important.
Well, so much of our life and our reactions come from a me, a center. So it's totally totally so refreshing and like intuitively rings true when you hear the other perspective.
That's right.
Mhm.
Kevin has a question, but he's muted. There you
Oh,
go.
Oh,
I'm unmuted. I'm not sure of the format. If you get called on, you just jump in. But anyway,
just jump in.
jump in, because we can't see everybody.
okay. Earlier in one of the readings, you were talking, or the author was talking about letting go of the why.
Yes.
Yes.
And in my own life, and I don't think I'm special for this, but I've always been relentless about trying to get the why, the where, and the when. And it's actually not served me very well. When I was first trying to get away from, drinking and drugging, I was told acceptance would be the key. And for me, I always wanted to know why. And it took me 2 years to get that acceptance is the key, basically, just to accept acceptance, more or less.
Mhm.
And but my mind is relentless in that regard. I still do it, and I've always done it. And doesn't mean I always will, but it's been a challenge because I try to, I find myself being very analytical.
Mm, mhm.
And it doesn't serve me in terms of being able to feel or be in the moment.
Right.
I'm speaking in really basic, broad strokes here, but
Yeah. Well, the why questions never end. They're like a dead end channel, a loop that just goes round and round that the mind gets stuck on, and it takes you out of the present.
Yes, yes. Well, the why questions are me questions coming from the me, coming from this ego, this me, as he said, that needs to take hold of something for its existence. So it takes hold of why, where, when. That's what he was saying here. Yes.
Well, I think it's also, well, in my case, and maybe in most cases, for me, it was survival. It was a survival mechanism.
Yes. Yes. And then that's so true. That because the me needs to survive. It feels it needs to survive. And because of this need to survive, it clings on to situations, or it creates situations, or it keeps repeating patterns, even though there's an awareness that the patterns don't work and that the patterns create more problems, more trouble. He holds on because there's such a deep fear of letting go.
I think in my case also, it had to do with, you're talking about letting go of memory, but not the type of memory it would take to get across the street without being hit by a bus, but the psychological memory. But in my family of origin, I think my relentless pursuit of the details I was trying to figure out the formula for survival because it was not a safe place. And it was all big questions and not mystery in a beautiful way. It was like there wasn't a lot of stability. And I think it set me on this path, but I would love to be able to lose that.
Yes, of course. So he says that's observation.
So that was an early coping strategy as a child.
Yes, of course.
Right.
That's how most children develop that.
Right.
Because they have to be able to survive.
Right.
And that's how we repeat the past in the present. In the present, we keep repeating the past. So he and Krishnamurti, both of them strongly, and even Nisargadatta, point to just the observing. He calls it listening.
But I think we all get stuck in that part of the mind because that's part of what the mind is that we're always questioning the why. And I think it's just taking the time to step back and almost practice just the observation. And that when you start to do that, that's when your mind starts to rest. Because what you're really doing then is you're saying, okay, it's all right. You can just, you don't have to work so hard at this. You just have to sit back and observe. It's not easy. I think it's just a change in mindset. And if we start to do it and you start to see it working, I think that you start to be able to do it more.
Yes, yes.
It's like flashing the light on it, like the flashlight is on the observation.
That's right.
Not why. It's because that's really just chasing around. So
that's right.
But all of us get stuck in that. That's part of the nature of the mind is to always be racing.
Yeah, movement, constant. Yeah. That's right.
Well, that's because if it does that, then it keeps you safe, and that's the whole job of it.
Yes.
Yes.
The reading that you did it was excellent. And I actually read 2 quotes earlier today, and they rung true with exactly what you said. I'd like to share them if you don't mind. One is from Nisargadatta, and the other one's from Ramana Maharshi. But the one from Nisargadatta is, if you know you are not the mind, then what difference does it make if it is busy or quiet? We're not the mind. So what I get from that is it's going to continue to do what it does because that's what it does.
Mhm.
But if you can step back from that and watch it, it kind of takes away all suffering and all problems or labels that the mind has also given that thought pattern.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then the one from Ramana Maharshi, which is similar but different words, is, what does it matter if the mind is active? It is so only on the substratum of the self. Hold the self even during mental activities.
Yes. Yes. That's right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, that's why he said here to let anxiety, let nervousness, I don't remember what else he said. He said, let those feelings that come up, let them come up, observe them and let them pass like clouds in the sky without identifying with them as they arise. Their appearances in awareness. And awareness, as Bernie said, shines the spotlight on these clouds as they appear.
If we don't interfere.
Yes,
That's right.
that's right. That's right. Well, it's the same thing with a cloud. You see it moving. You don't try and stop it. That's the same thing with what arises in awareness, whatever it may be. The observation of it, let it pass, it'll pass. If you don't interfere with it, it's got to pass. Now it may come up again, but in that moment, it has to pass if you let it go, if you let it pass.
Remember, we said last week, every arising thought, every arising sensation is just evidence of the awareness that enables it to be in the first place. So yes, the mind will produce a steady stream of thoughts and images, and we don't want to identify with them and carried away with them. And a good tool to not get carried away is to just see them as a reminder of the true light behind them, which without that light, there's no thoughts.
Absolutely, that's right. They
What
appear.
helps me a little bit with that is a Krishnamurti thing, where he points to the fact that if you don't name the emotion,
Yes.
just try to be aware. And I tried to do that, and when I'm successful, it works. The minute you name it, then you're in duality, and
Correct.
it's the ego doing it. Now you're in conversation with the ego, and you're in cahoots with a bandit. You know, he's a bandit, and he wants to do bad things. So it's just a little thing that I try to do.
Yes, and it's a really good practice. What happens is we go on automatic. So as soon as a feeling arises, we immediately tend to name it. However, we can pull the plug on it and let it be without naming it until we get so good at it that we recognize it coming up, you know, the knot in the stomach, the beating, the fast beating of the heart, and without naming it anxiety or fear, let it come up. That's a really powerful way of a observation, of seeing.
The naming, it almost reinforces all the patterns around it. You know, when you name it as anger or anxiety,
Mhm.
it just reinforces all the thoughts and conditioned reactions that are associated with it.
You tap back into memory.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
You
It's
get the whole
trained
history of the
memory.
damn thing. I've been doing that for 88 years of my life. My God, that's heavy to handle.
Yes, but remember what John said in this reading. Every moment is new. It's just new. So new, new means there's no past to it and there's no future yet to it. It's new. It was born in this moment. So we start right now. You know, it occurred today, looking out at objects, there was a realization that instead of looking out at objects, if you let the objects come in to you, come in instead of going out, come in, they point back to awareness. So it's almost then, like I think you said last week, every object becomes a pointer to your true nature, to awareness. Just simply by switching the perspective and instead of looking out, letting it come in. I just thought I'd share that little
Yeah.
thing with you.
I think that's what Van Gogh did.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
By the way, for the artists out there, Jean has some beautiful essay about art and what is art, which is a pointer to your true nature, to awareness, and what is artistic, which is reproduction. So maybe one week we'll read some of that. It's quite interesting.
I got here a little late. The readings, when you say John, is that?
Oh, is the book we're reading from, the book we read from tonight is The Ease of Being.
Jean Klein?
Correct, correct.
And there's one he wrote about art or artists.
Oh, yes, yes. Now, I know it's in his book called Listening, but there may be in some of his other books he writes about it as well. But he has a really nice essay in his book called Listening.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Well, does anybody else feel they have anything to say or to question, to comment? Okay. Well, then I think we'll close for tonight. Thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you next week.
It was very
Okay,
beautiful.
guys, thank you. Be
Thank
well.
Okay.
Have a
Bye-bye.
Buonasera a tutti. Buonasera. Buonasera.
Ah,
Buonasera.
ciao.
Stay healthy.
Ciao. Ciao.